changes made until the last day of the trade deadline. That's roster malpractice. That's organizational malpractice. And, now I think the next 2 weeks going into July 1st are going to be a huge start, or I guess we'll know by the time, I don't know, June or July 5th, July 6th, just how hot that seat for Jason Botterill is going to be going into the 2019 season. If they're able to bring in and honestly, I think a lot of that starts with being able to trade Rasmus Ristolainen. If they can get that done, move him off the books and find maybe another player, Jacob Trouba, or, I don't know. There are plenty of names out there that you could potentially trade for. I think the one that I'd be most interested in return, maybe not sending a Rasmus Ristolainen, but Nazem Kadri is a player that I'd love to pry away from Toronto. They clearly need to get rid of some cap room, or they need to create some cap room, and trading a guy like Nazem Kadri, who's sort of been a thorn in their side. I'd love to add a 50-point Kadri as your number 2 center on this team. He adds a little bit of grit. He adds a little bit of that borderline play that I think maybe sometimes this team misses in their lineup. And he's got the scoring touch. This is a player that's mostly been in the 50s and 60s in terms of scoring over the course of his career, and he only saw a dip when they started moving him down the lineup as they added guys like Marlowe, Austin Matthews and Mitch Marner and Kapanen and sort of some of these names that have moved him down the lineup. That's a name to me that makes all the sense in the world. I think he's making something like $4.5 million on the books for the next 3 years. That's a guy I'm all about.
Right.
That's the guy I'm all about going to get.
Yeah, I agree, and it's very tough because that has been a huge topic of discussion too, is either trading or keeping Rasmus Ristolainen. And I think with his points, his plus-minus ratio last year, I think that really was a telltale sign for a lot of fans. What the heck is going on with his game? He just didn't seem to really have much of anything on the ice, or even really off the ice. There were a lot of conversations that he had where he just seemed very burned out. And I think that's a recurring theme with this team, though. And that goes to my next point. Really, with the Sabres, they have it's very easy to say, it's a plain as day take to say that they just simply have not had the right coach. This next head coach, Ralph Kruger, they got to get it right, because if they don't, you're approaching these players that were once in their early 20s, now in their mid-20s, depending on how many years they dedicate to the hope that Ralph Kruger can get it right, those players could then be in their early 30s and maybe walking out the door. So as far as your initial impressions of Ralph Kruger, what were your thoughts on that press conference? I'm sure you watched bits and pieces of it. What are your thoughts on Ralph Kruger thus far and the hiring in general?
Yeah, I like the hiring. I think it's a bit of an outside-the-box hire, which I was absolutely all about. They needed a guy that had a little inspirational fire, that had a little, grittiness to him. It just seemed like everything that Phil Housley did inside and outside of the arena was just so lackadaisical. Like, there was just no urgency in his voice, in his tone, in the way he coached. And I think that complacency began to rub off on the team. And I look at it from Kruger's standpoint. All you got to do is flip on a couple of YouTube videos of his short, brief time in the lockout